Part 2 of the Aspen disaster.
I watched that 13-part story, so you don't have to. That's Christina, and she's telling us about her girl's trip to Aspen. So she just got back from a trip to Nigeria, and she decided that she wanted to do a trip to Aspen. Hit up a bunch of her homegirls. They all decided to do it. She also hit up her videographer, Jordan, to come out and like take pictures for the girls, right? There's two girls that the story ends up being about. One girl's named Deja, the other girl's Michaela. So Michaela and Christina are actually friends, and Deja is Michaela's friend. So all the girls that decided that they were going to go on the trip, they all get into a group chat together, and they all decide like, hey, we just want to kind of lounge. We don't want to do like a whole like itinerary thing. We might want to do some excursions, but nothing too serious. None of them really wanted to ski either. They were like, we don't even know how to do that. Deja ends up reaching out to Christina and being like, hey girl, do you know how much these excursions are going to cost? Because I need a ballpark number because I have a trip right after this trip, right? So she's like, yeah, totally understandable. She's like, let me figure this out. So she starts sending like Airbnb costs, how much the excursions are going to be. All that is being discussed in the group chat. Now everyone's being proactive. Everybody's responding back. Deja is not, right? So Christina ends up sending the Airbnb options. She ends up sending two options. The one that was $400, she sent it, but no one confirmed that. She ended up sending a $500 option per person, and that's the one that ended up getting booked. So Christina sends a message into the group chat like, hey guys, I booked the Airbnb. Here's how much it's going to be. Go ahead and send me the money when you have a chance. I already put down the deposit. At this point, everybody else on the trip has confirmed and told Christina when they'd be sending the money. Deja has not said anything though. So Christina ends up reaching out to Deja and being like, hey girl, are you still coming on the trip? And this is when Deja responds and says, hey girl, money is tight. I also don't want to affect the cost of the Airbnb for the group. Christina is like, tight as in like you can't make it, or tight as in like you can't do the excursions? And Deja's like, well, I covered my flight and I covered the cabin already, but I wouldn't be able to do the excursions, and I would want to do the excursions. So Christina's like, well, you're gonna have to figure out what you're gonna do and then let me know. So then shortly after that, Deja ends up reaching out to Christina again and finally telling her like, yo, I can't make it. I'm so sorry. Like, basically just like putting her hands up in the air and being like, I'm backing out of the trip, right? So Christina's like, okay, damn. So she hits up everybody in the group, and they all decide to try to figure out if they can find somebody else to fill her spot. After trying to do that and, you know, ending up failing, they're like, damn, we're gonna have to eat this cost. So then Christina's thinking like, well, she did say she didn't want to raise the price for everybody else in the trip, so let me see if she'll pay at least half the cost of her trip, right? So she hits up Deja and she's like, hey girl, like we can't find anybody to take your spot. Do you think you can just cover half of your costs? Like, you did say that you wanted to come, you were confirmed, and then you backed out after we had already booked it last minute. And then Deja, she was like, I didn't know there was a cancellation fee. Like, she's like, even if we did back out of this Airbnb and try to get another one, we're gonna lose out on $1,500. So she's like, can you just pay half of yours? And Deja basically said no. She was like, no, I'm not gonna do that. I tried to find Deja's response because apparently she made a video, but I couldn't find it. But I can say what, you know, Christina responded to in her series. Responded to the fact that Deja stated that the price jumped out of nowhere for the cost of the Airbnb. And Christina's like, no, we discussed it. There was discourse in the group chat where they all decided they wanted to have a jacuzzi inside of the Airbnb. For us to have a jacuzzi, we had to get the $500 per person property. So that's what we did. She's like, the price didn't just jump out of nowhere. Christina also stated that she actually reached out to your mutual friend, Michaela, and they both discussed saying like, you know, she was aware of the price. Like, you were in various group chats. You were in an Instagram group chat that you had to add yourself into if you were confirmed and wanting to go on this trip. You were hearting messages inside of the group chat about food and other things. You were very much involved in the conversation. It's just when it came down to like payments and stuff like that, that she went quiet. And so they were kind of trying to figure out like what was going on with Deja and like why she wasn't willing to pay half of the trip when she had a chance to back out of the Airbnb before it was booked, but she let them book the Airbnb. And then a few days later, after Christina reached out to her, finally said like, hey, I won't be able to make it to the trip. But at the end of the day, in that same message, she stated, hey, I also don't want to increase the price of the room for everybody. So that gave Christina the inclination like, oh, so you're going to cover your charges. A lot of people wanted to go on this trip and they dropped out at different times stating whatever their reasons were. It was just the principle of the fact of when you said it and how you went about the situation that I think Christina and a lot of other people in the group were upset about. Mind you, Christina is covering an entire videographer, photographer to come out to the trip, his cost, his food, all of that. And she just wanted, you know, everybody to go and have a chill, fun Aspen trip. Another thing that Christina pointed out was the fact that she didn't know that Deja was actually a flight attendant and she was gonna fly out to Aspen on standby. She was also bringing into question like how Deja mentioned that she had her flight covered and she had her cabin money, but she just wouldn't have money for the excursions. She's like, well, you didn't need money for a flight. Like, you're a flight attendant, you were gonna fly standby anyway. So she's just like clocking her, and Christina hates being called a liar. So she was just like, let's just pull out all the receipts, right? And if you wanna go to her page, you can see all of these like screenshots of conversations that she's posting showing how Deja was interacting with the conversation and like very much was confirmed to go on the trip and last minute backed out, which is what she had the most problem with. I guess during Deja's story time, she said that she felt like Christina was mean girling her and saying that she was broke. And Christina was like, broke is a spectrum. You might have your bills paid, you might have food on your table, but you don't have money to go on trips and like have disposable income essentially. And she's like, that's the type of broke I'm feeling you're giving, right? Christina said the whole reason she brought this whole situation on social media was to ask the, you know, like on Reddit, those threads that are like, am I the asshole? She wanted to know, is she an asshole for asking you to pay half of your cost when you canceled last minute and had everybody else basically having to scramble to figure out your portion of the trip. And because of the way you responded, she was like, maybe I'm tripping, let me ask other people. But she wasn't trying to like mean girl her or whatever. That's what Christina's saying from her perspective. So when Christina first planned this trip, she came on and she did this whole little story time telling us about Deja, right? Deja is the friend of her mutual friend, Michaela. So now it's the day of the trip, right? So now they're all flying out to Aspen. Deja's not coming. Another girl dropped out as well. Michaela is coming. She ends up texting Christina and being like, hey girl, do you think you can cover the payment for my excursions? Because I just got hit with a $200 Uber to go to the airport and I missed my flight. So I got to get another flight for $175. And so Christina's doing the math and she's like, well, if those things hadn't happened and you still had to pay the $250 for the excursions, that's telling me you brought $125 to spend on this trip. Like she's thinking like that's not enough money, right? So she's like, hey girl, I actually didn't pay for the excursions. Another girl on the trip did, so you're gonna have to pay her. So like just talk to her about it. Like I'm sure she'll be fine with it kind of thing, right? So she's like, we'll wait for you. Michaela's flight ends up not even landing until way later in the day. They end up burning a whole day waiting for her to land because everybody else landed around 9 a.m., around noon. Michaela didn't land until later in the afternoon. So they finally picked her up. They have a 3 to 4 hour drive from where they got picked up in Denver, I think, all the way to Aspen, right? So they're driving, everybody's hungry. They all stop to get some food, right? They get some food, they eat it. They all get to the Airbnb. Michaela leaves like a bunch of trash in the car apparently, and then she goes upstairs and runs and grabs the master bedroom, and everybody's thinking like, why would you even think you're gonna get the master bedroom, you know? And then they go to the car and they're like, who left all this trash in the car? And Michaela's like, oh, I left it, my bad, and she's like, oh, it's this little cup, you're complaining about a little cup? She's like, I don't care what it is, pick up after your stuff. And then she left her luggage like in the front, and they're like, whose luggage is this? And Michaela's like, oh, I thought somebody's gonna get it for me. And they're looking at her like, who did you think was gonna get your luggage for you? So she gets her stuff. She ends up realizing she's not going to get the master room after going back and forth and it turning into a whole thing. She ends up bunking with another girl. So they're all getting settled into the Airbnb now. Christina wanted to like recreate like a bad girl scene type of thing. They have the whole videographer. They wanted to do a little scene. Her best friend was already irritated because they actually ended up getting into it in the fight over Michaela and her behavior, and she really wanted to like go after this girl and like be like, why were you late, and the other girl and Christina both stood up for Michaela and was like, girl, it's fine, like just leave her alone. They like actually try to defend this girl, right? So when they tried to recreate the bad girl scene in the Airbnb later on, her best friend was like, leave me alone, like I'm not in the mood right now. So they ended up being like, whatever. People got drunk. Christina ended up falling asleep in the hot tub. It was a chill night, right? They wake up the next morning, they're all getting ready. Christina had promised Michaela that she would do her hair before they had even gotten to Aspen, but Michaela's like leisurely waking up late. Everybody's like trying to get ready. They're getting themselves ready. Michaela walks up to Christina and she's like, can you do my hair? Can you straighten it? And Christina's like, what do you mean? We have to leave an hour. You're not even showered. Like, how am I supposed to straighten your hair for you? And so she's like, come on, do it. I don't know how to do it. She's like badgering her, right? One of the other girls ends up looking at the girl and being like, girl, no one's gonna help you get ready. Like, go get ready yourself, you know? She ends up coming back and asking for like makeup. I guess she ripped her jumpsuit. She's asking for a jumpsuit. She's basically getting on everybody's nerves already. She didn't bring anything that she actually needed. She tried to put somebody's shoes on and be like, oh, I want to wear these shoes. These are my size. And the girl's like, those are my shoes. No, you can't wear them. She's like, why not? She's like, because they're my shoes. She tried to take someone's headband. Like, it was actually insane how unprepared this girl seems like she came to this trip. Mind you, the videographer, Jordan, he has a girlfriend, and Michaela's over here pressing her boobs up on him, asking him to like feed her a chip. And he's looking at her like, no, like make yourself your own plate. This is everybody's Taco Tuesday. You can make your own plate. You can feed yourself your own taco. You can feed yourself your own chips. Like, stop making people feel uncomfortable. Apparently later on, Christina goes into how Michaela was making everyone feel really uncomfortable. Like, every picture that Jordan took of her was super inappropriate. It was like her touching herself. It was just like too much. Like she said, all the girls and Jordan collectively felt extremely uncomfortable. I guess after making all the meat for the Taco Tuesday, they ended up like putting everything away, but then Michaela, I guess, took like a big scoop of taco meat and left it out all night. And when they asked her about it in the morning, she's like, oh, I thought we were gonna eat it. And she's like, why would you think that? Like, why didn't you put it away? She ends up putting it away, puts the plate inside the dishwasher, and then leaves the dishwasher open, and they had it running, and they walk by and they're like, who left the dishwasher open? Michaela's like, it was me. And they're like, what's wrong with you? Like, Why don't you close the dishwasher? Michaela was also bumming off of everybody's alcohol and trying to get drunk off everybody's drink and not trying to spend a single dime. Mind you, Christina already told her, like, I got you, I'm gonna pay for your food and your drink. But it just got too excessive to the point that, like, they all started buying their own personal bottles. So they get their own personal bottles and they get in the car, and Michaela's like, oh my God, what's that? What's that? And they're like, it's our personal bottles, like, it's for us, you know? And so she's like, oh wow. Christina just felt like Michaela was using everybody like her personal maid to like watch her stuff, get her things, buy her stuff. Not to mention she was trying to order top shelf like Don Julio shots on Christina's tab, and she's like, what is wrong with you? She's like, I would have gotten a sweet tea. So when they got their personal shots, she felt some type of way, and then she's asking like, okay, I want one. They're like, well, go spend money, go buy one. She's like, did you guys make friends with the bartender? Like, you think he'll hook me up? They're like, what is wrong with you? Go pay for your alcohol, like, be an adult. So they all end up taking shots. Jaden, one of the other girls, ends up getting a little sick, so Christina's telling her like, take a shot and make you feel better, whatever. So she gives her a shot. And then Michaela sees that and she's like, oh, so you're gonna give her and you're gonna give Jordan a shot, but you're not gonna give me a shot? Okay, it's giving you don't like me, it's giving mean girl, da-da-da-da. Christina's looking at her like, what? And this is the only time Jordan apparently like really addressed her. Jordan turned around and was like, keep my name out of your mouth, don't look my way, don't talk my way, nothing. And then Jaden also turned around and went off. And she's like, you've just been complaining and nagging this whole entire trip. And Michaela's like, what are you talking about? I didn't say anything, I didn't even say your name. She's like, you literally just said our names, like the entire time, even about like sitting in the back of the seat with the car that they rented. She was complaining. She's also the shortest person there, so it made more sense for her to go to the back, but guess she did not like it. But they were just like completely annoyed, and she said ultimately you guys can kind of get the vibe of like how she was behaving on this trip. It was just completely like immature and ruining the vibe in a lot of situations. At one point everybody was drunk, and I guess Michaela didn't think anybody would remember, and she said something along the lines of, I never said I didn't have money, I just said I didn't want to spend it. And everybody was just like, what? So you just been having everybody over here taking care of you? When she pissed Jordan off and he turned around and told her like, keep my name out of your mouth, he was like, watch me spend another $1 on her, because I promise you I won't. And so she just got on everybody's nerves, and ultimately they all came back, and now she's not trying to pay the $250 that she owes on the excursion. So this is when Christina came back on social media, was like, you guys been asking about the Aspen trip, let me tell you. And so she starts telling us the story, and she's like, she just paid for the $250 that she owed the girl who is married and has children, 4 children. She was trying to keep money from that woman. So they basically all had to hound another friend who introduced them all to her, and be like, yo, what is wrong with your friend? Why is she like not paying up? And then that mutual friend ended up reaching out to Michaela and being like, hey, it's embarrassing. Why do you owe people money? You know? And then she finally paid, and she was trying to say like, I didn't say I wasn't going to pay, did it? I said I wasn't going to pay right now. Mind you, right after they left the Aspen trip, she went on another trip, and she was posting pictures of her at a resort having drinks, but you don't have money that you owe somebody. When they asked Michaela, hey, can you send the money? She was like, oh, I thought Christina was paying for my excursions. Christina's like, I paid for your food, I paid for your drinks, and then you wanted me to pay for your excursions? I'm not your man. Like, what are you talking about right now? Like, you need to pay it. Mind you, she didn't even pay for the hotel until the day before the trip. People had been paid Christina back. Michaela didn't pay until the very last day before they left. So she should have already known the vibes, you know? Ultimately, she said she blocked Michaela, never wants to talk to her again. I doubt she wants to talk to Deja again. Michaela, I guess, did make a story time. Again, I can't find it. When I went on her page, she's like writing 19 hours ago, as of me recording this, saying like, I'm going to drop the story time. I don't know if she will. Michaela came out and said that Christina was just lying about a lot of things, and said that she was never broke. She never said she didn't have money. She just said she didn't have the money to pay right now because she was already on a trip. And Christina's saying, and that's not our problem. Like, you needed to pay when you said you were going to pay on this day. You should have paid on that day. Not saying like, what's the point of paying right now? I can pay later. Like, no, you need to pay when you owe people money. Also, during a lot of the first discourse that was happening between Deja and Christina, Michaela was like the middleman between a lot of it. And so now looking back, Christina's thinking like, you might have been lying about a lot of those things, because you were sitting there, Michaela, saying like, oh, Deja could just come, Deja can just come, like, I can just cover her costs, I can cover her costs. Like, if Deja had come, how were you going to cover her costs if you couldn't even cover your own costs? Like, when they did one of the excursions, which was snowmobiling, Michaela actually crashed one of the snowmobiles. The instructor specifically told them, hey, don't pass anybody, don't speed by, like, just go in a line, right? She ended up trying to speed by somebody, and she ended up crashing into a bunch of other snowmobiles that are parked right there. She ended up popping the wheel of one of the snowmobiles, and she was telling her, I hope you have your credit card because you're gonna have to pay for that. And she's like, oh no, like, it's not even popped, it's not even popped. The instructor literally picked it up off the snow and popped it back in. Like, you definitely damaged that snowmobile. And so after doing stuff like that to like later on turn around and not pay the excursion fees is absolutely, like, I think insane. And then Michaela accused Jordan and Christina of sleeping together, and Christina's like, first of all, nobody slept with anybody during that trip. Most of these people are in relationships. Second of all, that didn't happen. Where's your receipts? Like, why are you just claiming things? Like, show me the receipts kind of thing. And she's like, you were the one that was pressed to like sleep with Jordan, and when we were all saying, hey, Jordan doesn't sleep with his clients, you turned around and said, oh really, he doesn't, because that's something you were really thinking about. Whereas Christina was like, I have a roster of men, they all know about each other, they all talk to each other, they're very much like well acquainted, I know what I'm doing, I'm a grown woman. Whereas you, since I shared the story time, and she even mentioned at one point, like during the trip, Michaela was on the phone with a man all day long talking to Max, and she was like, why can't Max send you money? I guess a bunch of men that are talking to Michaela and have proof that they're currently talking to Michaela ended up reaching out to Christina and being like, hey, who's Max? They're thinking like, I'm the one dating Michaela, who's Max? And so she's like, maybe you need to like focus on getting your house in order, because not only did you not have money to go on this trip in the first place, and then you acted horribly, now you're trying to bring out allegations against me and Jordan that have nothing to do with what we're bringing forth, which is that you went on a trip, you had no money, and then you treated everybody horribly. You complained, you nagged, you were a complete just like burden on this entire trip. What does that have to do with anything? Like, why are you bringing that up in the first place? And you have no proof of it anyway. Michaela did eventually send the money finally, and I'm sure Christina and everybody else on this trip is happy to have it behind them and move forward with their lives. We all know girls' trip can go one way or another. It usually doesn't go very well. Travel with people that you know, people that you trust. Things like this tend to happen. Christina, sorry this happened to you, girl. You seem really cool. I hope that you continue to thrive and do your thing, as it seems like you will definitely be doing. Outside of that, you guys tagged me in this bunch. I wanted to make sure I got it out to you guys. I appreciate you guys as always. I'm just gonna put everything here. I love you guys. I hope you have a beautiful day. Bye.